Conference. Please welcome Sarah and our panel.
Thanks so much, Steve. Am I good with the mic?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you guys so much. It is so nice to be here in Austin, and thank you, everybody. It's nice to meet you all face-to-face and not just on Zoom. So if we could, let's just have each of you introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little about where you are in your omnichannel journey and just where you see your expansion going to brick and mortar. We'll start, Megan?
Yep, it's on. Even if it wasn't, you could have heard me, trust me. Thank you so much for having me here. I've met quite a few of you last night and this morning, and I usually go to textile conferences. People are pretty nerdy there. And so I was just texting my team, like this is the vibe here has been great. It's been awesome meeting everyone. I'm a chemist by trade, and I invented an antibacterial, anti-stink, sustainable, 100% sourced and made USA fabric that you sweat as much as you want and it won't smell, and you don't have to wash it that much. And the reason it even happened is my husband and I are super into fitness. I married him 7 years ago, was washing his stinky workout clothes. We all know that smell. And because my background, actually Steve said UVA, that's where I went and got my chemistry degree, that I just invented a fabric. And so took that fabric and started Excel Lifestyle, where we started with t-shirts and tank tops for men and women. And we then expanded into pants and joggers, et cetera, all with that kind of anti-stink property. We started D2C, quite frankly, because at the time I was a company of 2 people, and so we did our best, and so the joy that I'm experiencing so far being here is listening and learning, because we absolutely need to grow our marketing strategy, et cetera. We are carried in a lot of retail stores around the country, Omni, country clubs, a lot of high-end fitness studios, boutiques, et cetera, so thank you for having me.
Jesse?
Hi, I'm head of growth at Good Life Clothing. We're a premium t-shirt and essentials brand. We actually started on the wholesale side. The first few years of the business, we worked on growing those relationships, our biggest one being Nordstrom. We got into all the Nordstrom doors and Nordstrom.com. And that wholesale, that revenue kind of fueled our expansion into DTC. So the first couple years of the DTC, we were strictly online. A couple years ago, we opened our first kind of branded brick and mortar store. Going into this year, we were at 3 doors, and at the end of this year, we're going to be at 10. So the kind of the rapid expansion into brick and mortar hasn't been so much on the wholesale retail side, but our own kind of branded standalone stores.
Great. Demir?
Can you hear me? My name is Demir. I run Soylent. Soylent is the original food tech company. We started in 2013 making powders. Today, we're the largest nutrition shake, independent, complete nutrition shake in the United States. We were for 5-6 years online only, and we've been on kind of expansion into retail for the past 2.5-3 years. We're now in about 30,000 doors in the US and looking into Canada and Europe now.
Great. We were hoping you could each tell us what some of the biggest challenges have been for you guys as you've been moving into brick and mortars, and anything especially that was unexpected and how you're overcoming them.
So the biggest challenge I've had, probably with D2C, but definitely wholesaling, is I'd hear these opportunities about where I think would be a great spot and my clothes would do really well, because I think, well, what's the average, consumer of that spot? What do they make, financially? Will they afford the higher priced t-shirt? Are they into fitness? Are they not? And what I found was we need data, because just because I think a store is going to work really well, sometimes it doesn't. And then sometimes the stores that I've worked with, and I'm like, oh, they're going to carry a $72 t-shirt, it's probably not going to sell. And those are the ones that are flying off the shelf. So that's been the biggest, challenge, but not even a challenge. It's all like a learning experience. But definitely thinking that I knew who was going to be the best wholesaler, and then finding out a lot of times that it's not.
How about you, Jesse? What's the difference between selling and being in your own stores versus a Nordstrom, and how are you overcoming all that?
Yeah, I would say, the biggest challenge with our own stores, omnichannel is such a buzzword, and all our stores operate under Shopify POS. So in theory, we should be able to open a store and everything flows into our Shopify, and we have a very centric and kind of hub of data and information. But in reality, each store is its own animal, and accounting for inventory and fulfillment and having to manage, each store kind of as its own brand. We're a really lean team. I'm one of 15. We don't have a retail coordinator in-house. So it's kind of a team group effort of myself, our founder, a couple other members of our marketing team, trying to manage, all what's going to be 10 stores along with the e-comm, and also managing, kind of the marketing mix, and figuring out, now that we have these 10 stores, we're not capital backed, how do we measure what we're getting out of those stores when we're spending $1?
Okay.
For us, it has been measured growth. It's easy to go fast in retail and really screw it up. So what we wanted to do is, we keep saying internally, not every dollar is the same. And we always chase the dollars that are good for us today. And then tomorrow, when we're ready, we go to the next step. So for us, really measuring growth and being smart how we build playbooks to grow has been one of our biggest challenges. And saying no, it's hard.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about maximizing your media spending and marketing. I think the stereotype is that if a company began digitally, they know how to do everything digital, and they're much better at it, and probably a lot of people here would not agree with that. How have you been maximizing your spending? And
Yeah, so because we started D2C, my background's in chemistry, and my first hire's background was in, I don't know, eating at college. Like, she went to college at Charleston, and I still ask her, I'm like, what was your degree? She's like, marketing and business, but she had no real world experience, so we just kind of figured it out. What I have found is to do things, and it's all about telling the story, and Stacey was saying about video, et cetera. We have only a team of 10. And what we do with our team of 10, I would rival with any company of a team of 100, because we're really focused on doing things that are in line with our core values. So I'm a guest lecturer at a bunch of universities to schools of entrepreneurship and chemistry students, because I want them to know you don't have to be a PhD or a doctor, et cetera. So a lot of our money is actually spent on getting out into the community. We host a lot of fitness charity events, or even just events where we all get together and just give back, let's say to the Houston Food Bank or something like that. So it's been like, it's not expensive to do, it's extremely time consuming, but I'm at the point now where, okay, how can I, like Stacey was saying, and I hung on your every word, how can I now hire outside partners to help us kind of take it to that next level with our spend?
how about you guys?
Yeah, for us, when we were online only, everything was very measurable. We had an MER, we had a ROAS, everything could be kind of matched up one-to-one. So when we started going into brick and mortar, what we figured out is we could actually measure our revenue by store, kind of like we do with online ROAS. And the way we do that and the way we think about it is we have a four-wall EBITDA of each store, and we have our break-even EBITDA. And the way we kind of measure it and the way we decide to expand or not, or close a store or not, is if we can be basically dollar profitable on our four-wall EBITDA each month in each store, that's going to give us a path to grow, because what that doesn't take into account is it doesn't take into account like the LTV lift of somebody that finds us in store and then continues shopping with us online. And if we can basically be even, the brand acquisition is huge. Those stores are really like our cheapest and our best acquisition tool in the last couple of years. The other thing those stores really allow us to do is it provides brand credibility. We're not just like a D2C online player. We have brick and mortar stores in communities that we're active in. So from a media mix, keeping track of, again, that MER, keeping track of that four-wall EBITDA, and really treating the stores like an extension of online allows us to, kind of go top of funnel spend that we were, shying away from before, and be able to track it all the way to the bottom of the funnel, and really kind of keep spend to revenue in check.
So with just 10 stores, I'm curious, could you just give us a couple of examples of what you might do at the local level that's different for you guys?
Yeah, one thing that we've really started doing that's done well for us at a local level is we've started optimizing and utilizing kind of local TikTok lifestyle folks to get into the stores. One of the things that I love about the stores is just aesthetically, they look really sharp and they look really good. And having that kind of cheap brand awareness at a high but local level just gets the word of mouth of stores around, and that's helped a lot.
Okay, great. And how about you guys? How's your mix changed or changing?
Yeah, we change it all the time. It's hard when you start direct to consumer where you can measure everything. It's also hard when you're a new brand, because when you're a new brand, ROASs and CACs and CPCs, they really make sense. And then when you become a little bit more viral, a little bit more established, those measures just by themselves cannot guide your marketing strategy. So what we started doing is really trying to figure out how much of our direct-to-consumer outreach is actually helping in retail. And then we all keep saying, so our brand is 2/3 Gen Zs and millennials, or younger now. And so how do we capture these folks in a Walmart? Or do we capture their mom who buys for them, right? So marketing becomes not just as straightforward as serving an ad or doing something in store, but how do you integrate? And when you're, I would say, medium-sized company that doesn't have the big budget or the big agency behind you, it's very important to start kind of digging deeper into the data beyond just the top-level marketing measures. And it gets very interesting when you start researching some consumers and see kind of how the message travels around. And then also what we're starting to see is consumers that were in retail, then over the last 2 years, they went online, and now they're dropping back into retail. And it's interesting to see consumer sentiment, consumer behavior, how they travel between D2C, between Amazon, between the old school retailer, and then how they go back. And so what we're trying to do is capture them across their journey wherever they are, and we try to create it in a way that we're happy when they buy it. It doesn't matter where we are. So for us, being an omnichannel company, I keep telling my team is, if we're happy with every purchase in every channel, that means that we're truly omnichannel. If we're not subsidizing channels or we're not losing money on channels, that means that we're truly an omnichannel company. So for us, it's very important to start allocating these resources and marketing and thinking across that. Yeah.
If we could just stay with you for a minute, and then we'll work back this way. Talk to us a little bit about the kind of data you do need back most from retailers. What are you getting that's most helpful? What do you wish you had?
It is hard to get data from retailers. Especially, we go to them and we say, here's all the data we have, and it's tons, right? We know who people are, we know where they live, we know what they do. And then you go to them and they are like, well, if you spend $200,000 in marketing with me, maybe I will give you this PowerPoint, right? And so, which we almost never agree to. So then how do you work with them to really do this data share out and then ask them to participate with you? I think the other thing that we do well is, so for example, Walmart does this shopper data analysis, and they do very well internally, and they really don't like sharing it. And so we try to influence them and kind of bribe them and work with them and go to our console as often as we can, right, to get the data. And then depending on the level of the data that you get, especially if you sit down with the buyer, to explain it, that's where we can overlay. And then what we, I think, do well is we always play back to them. And then we go and say, and here's how we propose to work with you. Here's what we're going to do for you on shelf. Here's what we're going to do for you digitally. We pick and choose which marketing programs we want to participate with them. And we have found good success with that. And then we took that and did it at Publix. And it seems to be working. And then we're trying now to do it in others.
Thanks. How about you guys? I know you probably get a lot from your own stores, but I'd love to know what Nordstrom tells you and how helpful that's been. Or
Like Demir, I wish we got more. Where Nordstrom has been the most helpful for us is they help us guide where we should be focusing our D2C efforts. And that's just based on sales volume in all the Nordstrom boxes. You know, the advantage of Nordstrom being a national brand and having such a wide footprint is if a specific Nordstrom box is doing really well, we know to invest more resources on the DTC side to move heavier into that side of the business. The other thing that we're able to kind of track, and this is, you know, even more helpful as we expand our wholesale network. You know, we're with Dillard's now, we're on Saks.com, we're trying to get in more Saks stores, but using those retailers as kind of DTC acquisition tools. You know, we utilize first purchase surveys, and I'd say, you know, a good chunk of people find us in a Nordstrom or they find us in a Dillard's. So having that information and being able to kind of back into, now that it's our first party data, you know, we have geolocations, we're able to kind of map out where in the country and demographically where we're doing well on the wholesale side, fueled by what we're seeing on the DTC side.
So I just want to say, I was in LA pre-pandemic, let's say 2018-ish, working with my cut and sew, and of course I went to all like the fancy pants stores. That's where I first heard of Good Life. I was in the Nordstrom, and I saw like the perfect I forget what the branding was, but the perfect t-shirt, and so that's cool, sitting next to you. Also, Walmart, interesting, we just got on Walmart, and I'm not afraid of bribing. And by bribing, I mean I usually give food and I give shirts. So, for example, depending on who we're wholesaling with, I always want to know what colors are selling the best. Are they looking for other styles and silhouettes, age demographic, et cetera? And of course, they don't give us all the information we want, but it's amazing when you literally send like a cake and a bottle of champagne. So every store that we, pick up as part of the team, we always send them cake, pizza, and a bottle of champagne. You literally would think I'm sending them $3 million. They don't care. They just want that personal touch. So I'm fortunate to get some data from them for free, but thank you for sharing the Walmart part, because I didn't know that. So I'm going to be coming in hard.
Oh, great, thanks. Walmart, how to butter up Walmart. That could be a whole panel discussion for us. So talk to us a little bit about consumers. They're watching their budgets in ways some people might say they haven't since 2008. How has that changed your business? What's the impact of that? How is that changing your messaging? And any kind of underlying changing consumer trends that are on your mind every day?
So my answer will be a little different, which probably is great. We don't have the same answer. So when I first launched Excel in 2019, if someone would have said to me, what's your goal for the business? I would have looked them straight in the eyeball and said, we're going to be bigger than Lululemon. Everything's going to be ethically sourced and made, and every single piece of textile will have some kind of scientific component. Straight-laced. What I've realized is that I love creating textiles, sustainable textiles that put humanity and the environment at the forefront. And quite frankly, Excel Lifestyle as a brand as we know it today, if I had to guess, probably won't exist in, 5 to 10 years. But I'm loving creating textiles. And so I actually got these two advisors, and speaking of saving money and getting big results, I've gotten introduced to people that are ballers in their industry, retail being one. They're this guy and this gal, Mark and Marnie. They live in New York. They own the Retail Tracker. A lot of big brands use them. And when they first pitched themselves to me last year, they're like, oh, literally, we could call the CEO of Lululemon right now, and he'd pick up the phone and respond. If I had $1 for every time I hear one of those ostentatious, they were correct. So they've been actually great with introductions, and we just found out 2 weeks ago that, oddly enough, Talbot's is starting a more of a fitness, athletic, athleisure brand, category, and so we're actually launching in 50 of their stores Q2 of next year and online, and we're in great discussions with Bombas, Express, Ralph Lauren about licensing my technology to them. So just in learning, every day you learn something new, and the new people you meet, that the strategy is always changing.
How about you?
Starting on the wholesale side, working with the retailers, with the macroeconomic things going on, a lot of those relationships and a lot of what those big box retailers are experiencing, at the end of the day, that's out of our control. It's probably going to hurt us in the short-term cash flow. So, looking at the D2C side, we were already hyper-focused on being profitable over growth, and we're kind of doubling down on that strategy. So making sure that from an acquisition, everything is done with that end profit goal in mind, and really trying to understand consumer behavior when it comes to the promotional calendar. So for example, Q4 this year, we're moving up our promotions a little bit, but we're not going overboard. As a premium brand, we definitely have to be careful of not being too forward-facing with promotions, not training our customer to shop with, a discount in mind. So we're being, very targeted with how we do it. VIP members get a promo. We do affiliate where, it's your first purchase, and trying not to get into a promotional period during this downturn where we need dollars in the door. So down the road, we're not stuck in that rut. So, that's kind of how we view it, really looking profitability over growth.
If you could just dig into that a little bit for us. So discretion, I'm so fascinated by this. We all have to wear clothes. It's not exactly discretionary, but we don't necessarily need a new t-shirt. And yet things have changed a lot in terms of casualization and stuff. How is the 2022 consumer coming to look at your brand that might have been different than a year or two ago, and how are you capturing them?
Yeah, so what we're leaning into, especially this year that, we didn't lean into as much before, it's a $60 t-shirt. It's really expensive. You can buy cheaper alternatives, but what that $60 t-shirt is going to offer you is longevity. And it's, you know, it's like Megan said when she found it in Nordstrom, it's the power of the perfect t-shirt, right? So we offer guarantees. If you send it back within 2 years, we'll replace it. More than anything, it's going to hold up. So you can get a t-shirt from us, or you can get 3 t-shirts from, you know, cheaper alternatives that you're going to run through more quickly. So that almost like self-sustainability piece of it is one we're leaning more heavily in towards, and trying to educate the customer of really the value of leveling up a piece of their wardrobe that they wear on a daily basis.
Yeah, how about you?
Well, we have slightly different strategy from that. So Soylent was created for times like these. So when we created Soylent, we kind of had 4 pillars: complete nutrition, innovation, sustainability, and affordability. And everything that we do drives towards those 4. So we spent a lot of time educating consumers, helping consumers, working with food banks, UN, and whatnot, to really help people understand what complete nutrition is all about and how to go about it. So we're one of the solutions that we bring to the table. And so, for example, our first 2 retail customers were 7-Eleven and Walmart, not Whole Foods, not anybody else, because we thought that the consumer who can benefit the most from our product are the folks that cannot go to Whole Foods and curate their nutrition or choose the things that they need to eat, are the folks who are rushing from one job to another, or their alternative is to go to a gas station and get that hot dog from that, right? And so what we're trying to do is really to push our prices down, to do it in a good way, and then go to the retail and to the places where consumers cannot really afford a better choice, or we help them make a better choice via our product. So when pandemic hit, we did see an uptick a little bit, but we were pretty stable. And then what we're seeing now is we're actually seeing our biggest pickup in retail. So I think consumers, they only have that much money to spend, right, when they walk into a store. And when they buy a Soylent product, which is a consumable, something has to fall off, right? So the decisions that people are making is, am I going to buy a bag of chips, and why am I buying that? Or am I buying a Soylent, and how does that help me? So we've continued to amplify this message, and it seems to be resonating. We have about 80% repeat rate in Walmart and Publix. And I think people are finding that it's hard to find something that is good for you, and it also tastes good. And we spoke a little bit earlier about taste, how that's important. So I think what we're trying to say now is you're actually not making trade-offs between what's good for you, what's good for the planet in our case, and between your taste. And so that message seems to be resonating, and I think that will continue to push harder. Like, we haven't yet increased our retail prices. And we've continued to push that message around affordability.
So I think probably the stereotype, and a lot of people would say that plant-based eating is for food snobs, and so people would guess that it would be Whole Foods prices. How have you baked that into your messaging strategy to communicate that that's not true? Because you're obviously resonating with the value customer. How are you doing that?
So, as opposite to say like the Beyond Meats of the world and all that, we don't position ourselves as an alternative. We're just a better product than kind of milk and sugar. So when people go and choose Soylent, they don't choose it because they're making a trade-off. And I think that was our early history was like that, right? People were choosing function number 1 and taste number 2. And if you research consumers, they'll tell you, yeah, function is number 1. It's never true. It's always taste. And so how do you create a product? Just like saying grape juice is better than orange juice. It is not. It's different function. It's a different product. And the way we're positioning it, we're saying we're giving you the best nutrition shake that you can buy. Oh, by the way, it's plant-based. Oh, by the way, it's good for the planet. Oh, by the way, it's good for you. And now you can also afford it, right? So really, we've stayed away from the plant-based as a leading indicator, because plant-based is just a better ingredient in our point of view versus plant-based is going to solve everything for you or for everybody else. It does help a lot with sustainability. But if you also research consumers, they don't lead with sustainability messaging, right? So if you go ask an average consumer in Walmart or online, and you say, this product is sustainable and this product is not, they don't search out sustainable products, right? Sustainable products give you cred. They help you kind of fine-tune the choice. They also make you, in my opinion, a better company, right? And that is important to consumers, but the first that comes, it's really the product, the taste, and what it does for you.
Okay, great. And I think we have Steve over here. Thank you,
Yeah,
guys. I
we
think we're
have,
going to go to audience questions.
Yes, if you have questions, please raise your hand and I'll get to you. Oh, way back there. This is, no, it's okay. This is how I keep my girlish figure.
Hey, my name is Ryan and I'm with Quantcast. So something I've been really curious about recently, especially as it relates to the split between retail and D2C, is you don't have to look very hard to hear from either an economist or even just take a stroll through your shopping mall and see that there has been an increase in inventory, really like an inventory glut, in response to the supply chain shortages of COVID. So I'm just curious, as brands that sell both D2C and in retail, how does that cause you to shift your strategy, whether it's that split, or how are you thinking about that?
I'll start. We're really lucky because 80% of our inventory is actually manufactured in Los Angeles. So the turnaround times from when we place an order with our factory that we've worked with since we started to actually getting it in our warehouse and ready to ship is really quick. So we can respond to trends and react quickly and nimbly. That's on the DTC side. The wholesale side is definitely a little trickier because there are longer lead times. The POs need to be placed well in advance. A piece that allows us to do though is if a PO in a Nordstrom, if there is a certain style or a certain color that's working really well, we'll carry it over to DTC, even if we weren't planning on doing that before. So that usually happens, a season or two before we launch on our own site. So that allows us, and that's quick enough to turnaround time for the inventory to be made and delivered to our warehouse. But yeah, I think it's definitely top of mind for us. We're fortunate that we're able to execute quicker. Otherwise, when we have worked overseas, we have experienced delays, and it does push back our calendar, and we feel it. We feel it on our bottom line.
And I'll piggyback to what Jesse said. We actually did better in wholesale and retail in the last couple of years because everything's sourced and made in the States and our cut and sews in Vernon. So we can respond really quickly. And because our target wholesalers are actually more of like country clubs, boutiques, smaller entities, if you will, they realize that all the clothes they're normally carrying are on a ships, stuck over in China or whatever, container, so they can call us and be like, hey, we need this color, this amount, in the next 2 months, can you do it? And as long as the check clears, we're gonna do it. So we've actually experienced growth because of supply chain challenges because we have everything sourced and made here.
Ditto, we're made in the US. However, our supply chain is much longer. So we plan 9, probably 12 months ahead in terms of what we need to produce. If I decide to produce something today, I will probably not have it for 4 to 5 months. It is a very complicated process, it's very long. And even though we're sourced in the US and we have ingredients certainty, it's just the manufacturing is too complicated. So for us, what we do is we actually, luckily for us, we don't have enough inventory to sell. We've been shorting customers, but what we're experiencing is, I think DTC brands that really screw up their inventory management, they are suffering, so you need somebody internally to really manage that for you. And I think what we saw in the past, I would say 4 months, is that Walmart and the other big guys and Amazon, they really screwed up their own inventory management. And so Amazon, I think you guys have seen Q2, they had, I don't know, something like $30 billion negative cash flow. And all of that is inventory. So what we're experiencing now is they're cutting down. So there's a whole bunch of brands that depend on Amazon. They're seeing 0 POs because Amazon is chewing through the inventory that they have. So I think the learning for us is you just need to run a good company to be able to sustain that cycle with the retailer, especially if you're depending a lot on the retailer. And as you become bigger in retail, you really need to be able to sustain without the retailer support for a period of time, because they make their own choices and they make their own decisions, and you need to be able to supplement that and kind of get through it.
I'd like to wrap with a very media post question based on media, and this sort of one sentence answers. What is the one media channel that you're using that you think most effectively is driving retail, and how are you measuring it?
Probably the last person in this room you want to ask that question, because I'm here to learn how to do this, that part. Instagram. Instagram. We use Instagram pretty heavily, and because we live in Houston, and Houston is extremely supportive of our brand and company, that Instagram, we get the most amount of engagement, et cetera. But that's my short answer, ... But I'm excited to learn more of how to make it more of an omni-channel experience.
My short answer then would be CTV. We've seen growth there, a lot of reach that we weren't able to do on social channels, and we're able to do it for the most part pretty profitably.
CTV. Yeah.
CTV, okay. Sarah, panel, thank you very much. It was a great setup for the